Through the ups and downs, we stand tall in this journey of growth. Day by day, through the ups and downs, we stand tall in this journey
Hello.
of growth. Day
Hello.
by day.
How you doing?
Yeah, good. How are you?
Oh, mustn't grumble. So that's getting low. We do, I was looking at this yesterday. And we'd always start off with something like laughing at each other, even though.
Oh,
So
when
what are we
you were
talking about today, Jules?
transcribing was the first
Yes.
5 minutes
Yeah.
laughter.
Yeah.
Mm,
Pretty much.
yeah. Okay. Well, we're talking about free will and fate. Fate and free will. Fate. Fate. Do we believe in
Right.
fate? I like this topic. You brought this topic into the realm.
I just thought it was something that would be interesting from the list of things that we were looking at. I think I'd on the negative side, I'd read something about nihilism and things like that, so I thought it'd just fit in. So
Okay. So hit me with it.
right, how do we want to go about this then? Do we want to talk about sort of the key definitions? Start off with if people don't necessarily know what the
Yeah. Well,
topic means at a start.
yeah. I mean, yeah.
It's just interesting to me as a topic. I'm not an expert in this at all.
I
So
don't think we're experts in anything we talk about, are we?
in
I think
anything
that's a good.
at all.
Well, actually,
That's a good prerequisite disclaimer.
yeah, we are not experts. And I think it's, I was thinking this morning about how we also don't really, I don't think either of us have much time for research because we're
No,
too
but that's the
busy.
point of this, isn't it?
Yeah,
We discuss these topics with each other to then
that's exactly what I was about
perhaps
to
go
say.
away and say, right, we need to go and read more into need to do some more research.
But exactly, that's exactly it, isn't it? And I think it's worth a little reminder that that we don't claim to be experts in actually anything. Other than ourselves. You are the expert in yourself and your body. We're not experts in anything.
Okay.
So we're expert in some circles, I would like to think. Put yourself in a
Yes.
different circle of people and you may well be an expert
Yes.
in some subjects. Um, and we're talking about these things because they interest us, not to like give people knowledge. And we don't have much time because we're so very important and so busy adhering to our routines that we've set
Well,
ourselves.
you're a bit more rigid as we've discussed. Anywho,
You keep putting this on me, and I think you're projecting. That's the wrong word.
yeah, no, not
Transference. I
how my
can't remember. It's
routine was
projecting or transfer.
yesterday.
So anyway, what's your view of what did you want to? I mean, you just brought in nihilism. Why don't you just? Because
So
that's a big word.
yeah, so I'm just reading the definition of this: the belief that life has no inherent meaning,
Mm.
purpose, or value, often associated with existential despair, but also liberation.
Mm.
So yeah, and I listened to a podcast. I was trying to look it up last night, but it was so long ago now, and it wasn't about this subject. So it was brought in about it, and I can't remember the guy's name. So it's completely. I think it was a Chris Williamson podcast because I
Right.
do like listening to his stuff, and it might. Oh, I'm trying to
I
think. Anyway,
like
I
watching
won't
his
try and
picture.
guess. Yeah. But
Finding it a bit
anyway, and
boring.
it was basically saying that, like, life, you can't change anything. Life doesn't mean anything. It just is. Just get on with it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
You can't change anything. It just happens, and that's it.
it's quite
So
liberating.
yeah. So therefore, it doesn't matter what you do. That's legal, I would say, not
Mm.
murder. Yeah. So it doesn't matter what you do. That it'll just life will just be.
Mm.
It is written, or not even that it's written. I think it's just things just happen.
And then how is that different to fate then?
So that's like predetermined and inevitable.
Right. Okay. So nihilism, we can change our
But that
path, but there's no
no,
kind
it
of.
doesn't believe that you can't change anything.
Oh, right.
So it's just everything's there is no meaning, there is no purpose. It just things. Things are just things.
So similar to fate, but a little bit of a more negative.
But fate, yeah, I suppose, but fate is predetermined and things are going to happen anyway. So destiny, oh, it is destiny. So it's more of a positive view.
Okay. And then free will?
It's a cosmic order. That's what it's saying. Yeah, and then the humans have the power to make their own choices, independent of external forces.
Mm.
So I think fate is probably like the universe. Nihilism is like, oh, we're all doomed. It's all just happening. And yeah, free will. We've got the power. Whoop whoop.
Yeah. I mean, where do you stand? I've got some views on.
Oh, I change from day to day.
And
I
situation to
believe.
situation.
Yeah, I don't know, but I do think that you can cut. You can. I think it's a mixture of fate and you putting yourself in line. I think it's a mixture.
Putting yourself in line?
So you've got. I think it's to do when you're saying about like the universe and things like that. I do believe. Like I don't believe in say God as such, but I
Mm.
believe in a hut. There is something. There is something there.
Yeah. Is there an in between? Do you reckon?
I don't know how much influence you have over things, as in like that the higher stuff. But I do believe that you can map out your own life and you can set things into play.
Mm.
And I don't think it's necessarily always easy either. And I think a lot of the time you think things are going to happen instantly, and when they don't, then it's like, oh, well, it doesn't work then. Like law of attraction and things like that.
Yeah, law of attraction's an interesting one, isn't it? Because
Because you weren't. I remember when we were talking about this many moons ago, and we were talking about The Secret. For anyone that's listening that may have read The Secret, and how you can, what you think about, you bring about, and things like that. I suppose is that a good? I don't know if that's even in here, but yeah, I do think that there's something in that as well.
what do you remember years ago from
I
me?
remember you saying, sorry, I was just looking at that. I remember you saying that you weren't necessarily, you didn't necessarily agree with it, or you weren't bought into it. I don't know if that's changed. That
Did
was
I
a
say
long
that?
time ago. Yeah, yeah, because I was like that. Why did you never tell me about this? Because I remember when I first read it, it was Sean was here, and I'd never heard of it.
Oh, how I've changed. Um, I
And you were just like, yeah, well, meh.
Yeah, I do quite believe in it, but I believe in it. I think, and I certainly hear people talking about this, experts in the subject, how if
Mm,
we think that we can create through thought, then maybe we're a little bit silly. Um, I do believe in manifesting, but I believe you've got to go out there and get it. Um, how to explain this? Oh, I've got friends. I mean, they're great manifestors. They don't necessarily feel like they're great manifestors, but they really wanted a ski holiday, and it was not something that was within their budget right now. And then some friends, and they kept talking about their ski holiday and wanting their ski holiday, and then friends who are very wealthy offered to take them on a ski holiday, and they had an amazing
there you
ski
go.
holiday. And I'm like, you manifested this ski holiday, but they you put it out there. It's a bit more than just sitting on your sofa in front of your TV 24 hours a day thinking, I want a ski holiday, I want a ski like, you've got to go out there and
That is the thing. You've got to put yourself in the way. So if you've got to put yourself in fate's way,
yeah.
rather than saying that from a nihilistic point of view that it's all predetermined, so it doesn't matter.
But
Mm.
then who's to say that it's not the other? Could be another spiritual belief that the fate was they were always going on that ski holiday, and
Yeah, so it
the
doesn't matter.
universe was preparing their minds for the ski holiday,
Yeah,
and that's why they were wanting a ski holiday. Or like preparing them to say yes to the ski holiday when it got offered, because that was their path.
yeah. And then, so with that, then, do you believe that that the life you're living now is because of the decisions or the choices that you made whenever? Because like they say, this is another thing that I find difficult to comprehend is that the life you're living now is because of what you did 10 years ago or something like that. I've heard people say. I think I was 10 years ago, probably not in a good place.
Yeah. I like I like to I'd love to believe in fate. I'd love to believe that there's a path set out for us. But sometimes I do believe in fate, and then that can be a bit overwhelming because it means, to some extent, well, does it mean it? I don't know, but you kind of have to take every opportunity that's thrown in front of you, because that's, or maybe you don't. Maybe it's all within. It's all very complicated. But I have read Robert Sapolsky's book Behave, and that talks a
Mm.
lot. Let me give you the synopsis of this book. Why do human beings behave as they do? We're capable of savage acts of violence, but also spectacular feats of kindness. Is one side of our nature destined to win out over the other? Every act of human behavior has multiple layers of causation, spiraling back seconds, minutes, hours, days, months, years, even centuries, right back to the dawn of time and the origins of our species. In the epic sweep of history, how does our biology affect the arc of war and peace, justice and persecution? How have brains evolved alongside our culture? This is the exhilarating story of human morality and the science underpinning the biggest question of all: what makes us human? And
Mm.
so he talks a lot about how our brains work and what's within us, from an evolutionary perspective, like things that are quite scary but make things make sense. For example, oh my god, I need to sneeze. Excuse me.
Oh, bless you.
Um, Things like racism. So our brains automatically, um, it's an evolutionary safety thing, make us feel scared of something that looks different to us.
Mm.
So different races, we have a kind of innate quality, or maybe it's not quality, maybe it's the opposite of equality, in our brains that makes us instantly feel some kind of discomfort when we see a different race.
So that's
And
not us being racist. It's basically um, yeah,
yeah, I don't
because
think
of
it justifies racist behaviours, but it explains to some extent where racism may come from. Um, and I guess we've kind of really modern humanized that too much and created racism and segregation, etc. But we can't escape the fact that our brains react to a different race, and that's from birth. Um, and so the book's about things like that, and also how they've shown in law courts that judges, and you might have heard this because I think this is quite a common knowledge, that
because it's common, I'd understand it, would I?
no, but I've told people this before, like it's revolutionary, and then they're like, "Oh yeah, I knew about that."
No, God.
um,
Small words. Yeah.
you're far more well read than me. Um, it talks about how
You are.
judges judges are more likely to prosecute, so, or give someone higher sentences, I think, if they haven't had their lunch yet, or it's like a certain day of the week and stuff like that. So there's certain times of the day and days that it's
Same.
better to go and have your
Send him down. I'm hungry. I want my sandwich.
yeah, you can understand it. I can resonate.
Some of the decisions I make when I'm hungry,
There you go.
hungry
So
and tired. Oh,
it's all very interesting. But shall I read you Robert Sapolsky's view on free will?
yes, please.
Robert Sapolsky says, here's how I've always pictured mitigated free will. There's the brain, neurons, synapses, neurotransmitters, receptors, brain-specific transcription factors. Oh, I see, this is where it's all gone out. All right. Aspects of brain function can be influenced by someone's prenatal environment, genes, and hormones, whether the parents were authoritative of their of them, this whether they witnessed violence in childhood, whether they had breakfast. It's the whole shebang, all of this book. And then separate from that, in a concrete bunker tucked away in the brain, sits a little man or woman or agendered individual, a homunculus at the control panel. The homunculus is made of a mixture of nanochips, old vacuum tubes, crinkly ancient parchment, stalactites of your mother's admonishing voice, streaks of brimstone rivets made out of gumption. In other words, not squishy biological brain yuck. And the homunculus sits there controlling behaviour. There are some things outside its control. Seizures blow the homunculus's fuses, requiring it to reboot the system and check for damaged files. Same with alcohol, Alzheimer's disease, a severed spinal cord, hypoglycemic shock. There are domains where the homunculus and that brain biology stuff have worked out a detente. For example, biology is usually automatically regulating your respiration, unless you must take a deep breath before sitting an area, in which case the homunculus briefly overrides the automatic pilot. But other than that, the homunculus makes decisions. Sure, it takes careful note of all the inputs and information from the brain, checks your hormone levels, skims the neurobiology journals, takes it all under advisement, and then, after reflecting and deliberating, decides what you do. A homunculus in your brain, but not of it, operating independently of the material rules of the universe that constitute modern science. That's what mitigated free will is about. I see incredibly smart people recoil from this and attempt to argue against the extremity of this picture rather than accept its basic validity. You're setting up a straw homunculus, suggesting that I think that other than the likes of seizures or brain injuries, we are making all our decisions freely. No, my free will is much softer and lurks around the edges of biology, like when I freely decide which socks to wear. But the frequency or significance with which free will exerts itself doesn't matter. Even if 99.99% of your actions are biologically determined in the broader sense of this book, and it is only once a decade that you claim to have chosen out of free will to floss your teeth from left to right instead of the reverse, you've tacitly invoked a homunculus operating outside the rules of science. This is how most people accommodate the supposed coexistence of free will and biological influences on behaviour. For them, nearly all discussions come down to figuring what our putative homunculus should and shouldn't be expected to be capable of. So he basically thinks that everything we do is determined by our environment, our upbringing, actually the biology of our brain, like if there's any malfunctions, and that we don't really have any free will at all.
Do you agree with that?
I think that the book sets out some pretty good scientific evidence for that, but I kind of would quite like to believe in fate, but maybe then that's what fate is. If everything's predetermined by everything that's happened in your life, I mean, that is essentially saying that we don't have free will and that there's fate, but it's a different type of fate, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's not like some big guy up in the sky setting our path for us.
That's the thing. And then, but then can you, with your thoughts, like like the reticular activating system, that was something that the part of your brain hold on, let me give a good, network of neurons in the brainstem that acts as a filter for what information gets through to our conscious mind. So, I think there's an example that that I remember from me when I think my first car. So I'd never heard. My first car was a brand new Citroen Saxo, right? I never heard of it. I wasn't really into cars, right? So I didn't know what one was. And I remember when I went and chose the car, I'd never seen one before, and I was like, oh. And then when I came back from the garage, I remember then just seeing them everywhere, because obviously your brain has then noticed them. And I was like, oh, there's another one. Oh, they are quite common actually, even though I never even knew what one was beforehand. So because your mind has then been, activated to see that certain car. So when you start thinking about things, so say and this is probably another scientific reasoning behind The Secret, if you were to start thinking about, I don't know, I want a German Shepherd, say, because I'm looking at my German Shepherd now. And then all of a sudden, you just, there's German Shepherds everywhere. And you might then see a German Shepherd rescue, or you might talk to somebody about, I'd love a German Shepherd. And then that person might just go, I know somebody that's, that wants to rehome a German Shepherd. And then all of a sudden, you've got a German Shepherd.
I love thinking about things like that, because it would kind of suggest that you end up with a German Shepherd because
you thought about
crossed
it.
your path at some point.
But is it?
Well,
or is it predetermined?
Maybe. But if that German Shepherd hadn't crossed your path, and then you could take that back to like I get my mind boggles because I have these kind of thoughts all the time, and it then gets just too complicated. But like that German Shepherd that walked across your path, if something hadn't happened in their day, well, it's like that sliding doors moment, I guess.
Yeah, don't. And then also another thing I thought about was the butterfly effect as well.
Yes.
So the chaos, fate, or free will, and then you start
Yeah.
going down some other holes. So butterfly effect comes from chaos theory and suggests that a tiny change in initial conditions can lead to vastly different outcomes.
Yeah.
So a butterfly flapping its wings over in somewhere else can lead to a hurricane or whatever.
Yeah.
Can it?
I think that's not actually true. It's just a
Oh
metaphor.
yeah, a butterfly flaps its wings in Brazil, and weeks later, a hurricane forms in Texas.
Yeah.
That's an example.
Yeah. I
So a
think
small
it's a bit
decision,
metaphorical.
yeah, but a small in human life. Well, no, they did scientific experiments on it. They
Right.
did actually do a list of. They did like some predictive scientific experiment that would say on the energy from a butterfly's wings.
Let's all flap our wings and create storms
Yeah.
around the world. But yeah, no, that is really interesting. That one tiny thing. It's the snowball effect as well.
Mm. Gather momentum.
Tell us more about chaos theory.
I don't really know too much about chaos theory, to be quite honest. Yeah, so I don't, yeah, is it a tiny, if a tiny event can have unpredictable events, then maybe there's no grand design, just a chaotic web of interwoven choices and circumstances.
So, do you think there's any dangers in believing? Like I'm thinking about a time. I don't really like to talk about this. Well, I'm going to talk about it and just hope that the friend involved doesn't listen. Well, they can listen. Anyway, this was a long time ago. I was in the swimming pool and with the kids, and there was a woman in there with her daughter, and she was being really mean to her daughter. Not in a kind of, well, I suppose you could call it abusive, but it wasn't. Basically, she was wanting her daughter to learn to swim, and she was forcing the daughter to swim. I don't know, from the middle of the pool to the side or whatever. And the daughter was only little, 2 or 3, and you could tell she was absolutely terrified. Like I could see her kind of shaking. She was in a real state of fear. And the mum was being quite aggressive in her way of speaking to her, I suppose, and absolutely forcing her, just kind of letting go of her in the pool. And the little girl was clinging to the mum,
Mm.
like a terrified animal, just clinging to the mum, so scared. And the mum was like peeling her off and just kind of letting go of her in the pool, so she had to swim to the side because she's in a swimming pool. And it was really horrible to watch, and one of those situations where, really, if it were someone treating an animal like that, you'd step in and say something. Yet somehow it seems to pass with children because of that whole, it's their child, they can treat, they can do what they like.
Mm.
It wasn't okay. And I remember going to a friend afterwards and saying, I've had this really uncomfortable experience. It really affected me. And the friend at the time was clearly strongly believing, I guess, in fate, but also alongside fate, a kind of almost perhaps a religious view of our what we experience in life is a result of our wrongdoing, maybe. And I remember, rather than kind of acknowledging the wrongness of what I'd seen, kind of said, well, I wonder what that child had
Oh,
kind of
don't. Yes.
like
Yeah, I've
done
heard
wrong,
this
I
as well.
suppose, done wrong in the past, or that child
Oh, I've got no time for that.
chose their destiny type. But that's fate,
Mm.
right? That's believing in
Mm.
fate.
But then, I told you about something I bloody paid for once, and it was about how your life. Oh God, I can't think what it's called. I should have done some more on this. But it's about how when you're born or something, it's the time you're born or whatever means what's happening in your life.
Well, is that not like astrology?
Something like it wasn't. It wasn't called It wasn't from astrology though. It was something else.
Oh, right.
I just thought it was a load of rubbish.
Yes, but if that,
But is that because that's my belief?
well, no, Well, I don't know, but
Human design, that's it.
oh, okay, I have heard of that.
Yeah.
But fate can be dangerous in that way. If you just, and also fate can stop you having any kind of internal locus of
Well,
control.
I think that human design thing is like, well, you need to just, and it was kind of like, I suppose, perhaps people that like more gentle coaching would enjoy it because it's like, but you just listen to. And I was thinking, if I listened, and I think we've had this conversation before, if I listened to what my mind wants to do, I'd be laying on that sofa all
Yeah,
day with my dog, drinking hot chocolate, like you said. I think you said that, but I would quite happily join you there. Add a few marshmallows on top and another bar of chocolate to dip in the hot chocolate.
yeah,
That's what I'd probably be doing all day. So if I listen to what my, whatever it is was telling me, I would be sitting on that sofa all day.
yeah. And I was working with someone.
So I don't
I had
know.
a client the other day who was talking about how they feel shame for some of their behaviours, and I pointed out that these behaviours that they're feeling ashamed of, they don't actually do. I'm not going to go into the behaviours because it's too, it is confidential and too personal, but it was something that they felt like they have a desire to spend the entire day kind of shut away, engaging in this behaviour. And I was sensing a misalignment because they were telling me that that's what they were ashamed of, but at the same time, they were not giving me any times that they've done this. And I pointed out, but you're not doing this. And I think it's really important to be aware of the parts of ourselves that we do have, you and I and this client and lots of other people, that actually stop us doing the thing that we don't really want to do. We do want to do it.
Mm.
Yeah, that would give us some momentary satisfaction, laying on the sofa with your hot chocolate. Who is it? I was listening to a podcast recently and it was on discipline. I think, did you, or I don't know if you shared it with me, but it's of course it's a Stephen Bartlett one, and it's on discipline. And he talks about discipline is thinking of your future self,
Yeah.
doing
What
right
and
now.
that's what that Chris Williamson had a good quote that he said, and it was, "What would the you of tomorrow thank you of today for?"
Yeah, great. Yeah,
So when you're trying to make a decision on what you like, so would Angela tomorrow be grateful that you sat on the sofa and drank a hot chocolate for 2 hours instead of creating some content, or
yes,
instead of writing a blog, or you know?
exactly that.
No, Angela
Yeah,
tomorrow would be very angry at you and have some choice words to say.
yeah.
But then, yeah, so that's, yeah, yeah,
Well, so what I was going to say is when you can do that, when you can think of your future self, then you have that quality. It doesn't matter. It doesn't really matter what deep within you want to do. What you think would bring you joy. But I don't know how we've
yeah,
really got onto this from
no.
fate and free will.
But that leads on because you were saying about the chaos theory. So it would mean that if you were to then do, a small change to yours, because you, like with your system of how you have created your life, right? Or how fate has created your life.
Design,
So
human design.
yeah, oh, I don't. Yeah, so, but yeah, so how that would then mean that if you made one small thing changed it, then your whole, because you've said this before, haven't you, about things, it would affect your whole day, and then your whole day is just ruined. Not ruined, but then your whole routine is knocked out of sync.
My life is
So it's
ruined.
yeah. So your complex system is highly sensitive to small changes.
Mm, yeah,
So a
it's
tiny
like the
difference in
butterfly.
conditions can lead to radically different outcomes.
And maybe that's a good thing. Sometimes these things are good things.
Yeah.
Maybe you need that little butterfly to nudge you back onto your path. Actually, this is
Mm.
really helpful. So let's think about, I mean, is it important, do you think, to have a belief in fate, or because we've just talked about the negatives of fate. Like, I think when you believe too strongly in fate, in one hand, it can be dangerous when it's like abuse and things like that,
Yeah.
especially, well, in all cases, But if we all believed in fate, then little children who are being abused wouldn't be removed from an abusive situation, because people would be saying, well, that's fate. And actually, Robert Sapolsky in that book, he talks about, if we believe in fate, then we're not no, if we believe in a complete lack of free will, then we don't punish people because it wasn't their
Yeah, because they
fault.
didn't mean it.
Yeah. So you've got to,
Well, they did mean it.
I think you've got to be flexible
Subjective.
with them.
As ever.
Flexible, malleable. They're malleable. But thinking about the burrow. So let's talk about the burrow that we know. I have access to this amazing bit of land, but they are, I mean, we probably shouldn't, confidential information, etc. But for reasons that we won't disclose, there is the possibility that that land will be used by other people and things will change with regards to how I'm using it. And my initial reaction was to feel really threatened by that, and I could have gone down a path of a real downer, I suppose. But I actually made the choice in the moment, and it was a choice, because my natural reaction would be to go down the feeling threatened route, the uncomfortable, the upset, the disappointed, all the negatives. But I made a conscious decision to sit with it with open curiosity, almost from a perspective of fate. Like, okay, well, let's watch this and see what happens, because it's interesting, and kind of just step back from it, not try and control it, not feel disappointed and frightened and uncomfortable, but just feel curious and open whilst still working on it.
Yeah.
And maybe that's where there's a combination of the two, because if you just go down fate, then you don't work on something, do you? Because it's going to happen anyway.
That's it, isn't it? So yeah, but do you know anybody that lives like that, that just doesn't worry? Because I think I sent in a message to you yesterday that I live too much. I think about the past a lot, I think about the future a lot, and then perhaps don't sit in the present, because I'm trying to make sense of the past. I'm trying to create a better future, but when am I ever really in the present?
That's
But
not
then,
my.
but then is that then? Because I know not everybody thinks like that. So then, I might just make it. I honestly think I make my life very complicated.
What future are you
When
trying
I
to create?
like the future that I'm trying, like it's basically like a better future than I've had before, like a better life than I've had before.
I feel like, when I see you, or how I see you, is maybe a better way to say that, is that you're in the present.
No, no, not at all. It's interesting. I definitely don't feel like I am.
But do you
Not
have
at
a
all.
plan for the future?
Yes, but it's taking forever. And this is the thing. I think that's why
What's your plan?
um, if I tell everybody, then no, it doesn't necessarily happen, does it?
That's like, what kind of belief is that?
Yeah, well, no, because I don't. It's in my head
Is
at the
it fate?
moment.
Is it going to happen anyway?
Well, this is it. I don't know. I'll tell you
Oh.
when it does or doesn't happen. There's lots of things that I'd like to improve. I don't necessarily want to talk about it in a public arena. There's lots and lots of things that I want to. Yeah.
Oh, okay. I mean, I find it really hard, because I'm trying to now put myself in your shoes, which is impossible, and understand, what you think and how you think. And then bring it back to myself and
That killed
say,
that conversation.
well, this is what I
Yeah,
think
but
you
I
think.
don't. Yeah, see, I definitely am. Yeah, I've got other things that I want to be doing and be creating that aren't necessarily what I'm doing now. Definitely. But then, but then are you really in control of that?
What's stopping you from doing it now?
No, I am in the process of doing things that I want to do now, but like finances, things like that
Yeah,
that I'm working on.
I think that's really complicated because you're saying, but if you were to be 100% in the present, then you wouldn't. Like, you've got to think about the future a little bit, right? Because we live in our society, so you can't. You're not on your lap. If you were, in the Ice Age, living with your tribe, following the seasons.
But this is it, isn't it? Because you think like years ago, 100 years was 1,000 years. Like so the evolution aspect of things. Some times, and I can't think of them exactly, where for them to evolve even a minuscule of what we do in our current like timeline, then it would take 1,000 years.
Do you think we're evolving?
Well, look at the way technology is evolving then. So from
Or
when,
technology, but
trying to
us?
explain to a child, well, we've evolved because technology has evolved, right? We're closer. We can talk to people across the world that we could never speak to before, or it was just pen pals. Things are faster now. You can communicate. You can communicate quickly with people that you would never have been able to communicate with before, and have conversations with amazing people that you would never have been able to do before. It wouldn't have been at your disposal to be able to do that. You think when you were, say, at school, I don't know if I'm showing well my age now, but it was like pen pals, and I was always an avid pen paler. Oh, I loved writing to
I
people.
loved
I'd
a
get
pen
there,
pal.
I'd meet girls on the holiday when I was like, at 9, 10, 11, and I'd be like, okay, and then I'd write to them forever.
Me too.
If I had their addresses now, I'll probably still be right. Don't you? Hold on, don't you still have somebody that you still communicate with? Don't you?
I did have someone on Facebook. I don't think she's on my Facebook anymore. I did have someone on Facebook who was. I have
Yeah.
got. Yeah, I mean, I have got a couple of people
I
on my.
collect people now still when I go on holiday. I've got Egypt Jane. She's somebody that
I remember Egypt Jane.
Egypt Jane. Yeah. But I do think that, and we meet, but I think without, that's how I'd perhaps say the communication is one thing that I can think of from our evolutionary perspective, but I don't know and thought processes as well, because you've got access to much more information.
Yeah. So
I'd probably still be stuck in a terrible loop if didn't have access to the information I've got access to now, and therapy and things like that and great minds that you can pick if you're bold enough to reach out to people, which I have done before.
I,
you know
yeah, I hear all of that, but I don't believe that we have evolved as a human race. I don't believe that our brain needs it is understands any of that, I guess. So I think our brain still is.
Are we trying to force it?
Well, I don't think our brains and our bodies have changed that much from however many years ago. I'm not very good at the
And
timeline.
well, it's still in question now if you ask Graham
We can,
Hancock. So.
we can do, there's technology around us that can do all this stuff, but our brains are still as they were. I think it is changing because I think kids are changing as a result of technology, and it will be interesting to see whether their kids are born with different kind of brain functions to what ours are. But that's true evolving. I think there's different meanings of the word, isn't there? But I mean evolving as in how humans change. Like, will we stop? That there's that thing, isn't there, about like thumbs becoming stronger or something like that, where people are using them on their phones.
Oh.
Like, to me, I'm thinking of evolving in that way, like how we did as human beings. The strongest survived, and the strong thumbs do better because they can type
Then,
better.
but then with when it comes to medical advances, so that the weak are now surviving because of medical advances. So is that an evolutionary aspect?
That's a really good point.
People are living longer. They never used to live as long because of medical advances. That's not evolution, or is it because we've evolved to understand how to make people live longer?
Yeah, but have we evolved, or has it just Have you listened to the podcast on? Oh, which one was it? Where they're talking about? It was. Dare we mention
Who
that we
was it?
listened to it? It was Elon Musk, I think,
Mm.
where
Oh yes, love
he
him.
was
Rogan.
talking about the population dying out, and his belief is that we need to
Yeah,
do this
yeah,
technological stuff really bloody quickly, because he thinks that we're not going to, the people with the technological intelligence are maybe not going to be born, because people are not having so many kids, and
yeah.
I mean, he seems to think the human race is dying out pretty much, but there's a crisis on our hands. But
I love Elon.
that was interesting. Yeah, that's a controversial subject,
Yeah.
but I
Well,
did
numbers don't
enjoy that
lie, do they?
podcast. I
Numbers
did
don't
enjoy
lie.
that podcast.
Yeah.
So fate can be dangerous, but I'd love to believe in it.
Mm. But do you know of anybody that just walks around and like la la la, let fate decide? Because there was that book,
But they
wasn't there?
wouldn't
Who was that guy
survive,
who,
would
who
they?
just said yes? Who just said yes to things and went off in, I think you told, or did I tell you about
No,
it?
but I'd love to read it.
It was that guy. He's written a couple of books. Oh my
It
God, I'm
wasn't the
terrible when I
Surrender
come in here.
Project.
That's it, yeah.
Oh no, I haven't read it. I read the one before, which is, oh gosh, it's a really well-known book.
Yeah. Hold
And
on.
I can't even remember who he is. Yeah. Was it good, the Surrender Project, then?
Yes, it was. Oh, the Surrender Experiment, Michael Singer.
Michael Singer. And what's his other book?
I'm just trying to find it now. But yeah, it's hold on. Yeah, that was really good.
And where did he end up?
Oh God, he ended up on a building a house or having a house built for him on some that turned into like a commune, and people just came and went, and
Oh,
he had
amazing.
people living there that he didn't necessarily want to live there. And then this big yoga. I'm really probably doing this book a massive injustice as ever, but he ended up having this yoga. The person who invented yoga or whatever coming to stay there and do like retreats, and yeah, it was mad. That
Wow.
really good book. Oh, The Untethered Soul,
Untethered Soul.
letting go of
How,
mental resistance.
I would
Yeah.
like to know how he's living now, though, then.
Hold on, because I did probably know that, but my retention of knowledge.
Because that would
Yeah,
be really
he.
interesting. That book's a
Oh,
while
I think
old, isn't
he's.
it?
Yeah, yeah. No, because I think I did look this up at the time. Uh, Hold on, he offers an online course titled "Michael Singer is renowned for his works on spiritual." Oh, I've got a picture of him. And mindfulness. Continues to be active in sharing his teachings. He hosts the Michael Singer podcast. Maybe we should get him on, where he delves into topics such as acceptance, clarity, and living in the present moment. Additionally, he offers an online course, um, and he leads sessions at the Temple of the Universe. Bold, a yoga and meditation center he founded in '75 in Alcoa in Florida. Alakua.
Did he
Probably
found that when he
butchering
wrote
that.
the Surrender Project, then?
Yes, that's what he was doing.
So
Meditation center.
he,
He ended up acquiring land, like somebody gave him land, and then he was like, "Oh, I'll just do this. Oh, we'll have this." And then things came to him,
well, that's
and it
me.
was like
Someone's given
people
land.
came to him. Yeah,
Oh,
exactly.
maybe I
You're him.
should read it. Or maybe I should give it to them.
You should. I definitely told you about it at the time.
Um,
Told you.
because what's the other one? The Untethered Soul. That's very
Yeah.
similar to The Power of Now, I think. Is it similar to that book?
Oh,
And they're kind
I
of,
just
and
lost
I
you
find
then.
those.
I can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Oh yeah, I can now. Yeah, you just went.
The Untethered Soul is very similar to The Power of Now. I think I'm getting the two books right. It's The Untethered Soul, definitely, and
Mm.
I'm just unsure if it's The Power of Now. But I find the like the viewpoint almost too complex to understand myself. But it's a separation of the you from the you.
Sorry, my dog's moaning in the background.
I'm sorry. You were trying to
Did
do
you?
that subtly. But I can't not laugh. And I know you were doing that to try and not be heard on the podcast. This is like, I
My
want to say like the Big Brother house. Angela just looked at her dog and did a big silent shh.
Oh dear!
Oh,
Now he's sitting
Frank.
next to me looking at.
No, Frank. What's
Oh,
Frank doing?
Frank. Frank said enough.
We need Frank as a guest on the podcast.
He knows when I'm about. Yes, it would be very barky and bitey. Sorry. Anyway, you were saying about. I don't know what you were saying.
No,
Completely
and I
lost.
know we haven't finished, but can we just ask people to like and subscribe? Because every time we finish this podcast, I
Oh
think,
yeah.
we're supposed to say, please like and subscribe.
Yes. Or yeah, it is subscribe, isn't it?
You enjoy us
Yeah, I'd forget to do
laughing,
it in my actual video.
like and subscribe. Um, yeah, where were we before you so rudely interrupted us with your
Talking about
shh?
Michael Singer.
Michael thing. Yeah, I can't quite get that concept of like separating the you from the you. Do you know what I mean? Have you read those books? And
No.
I wonder if there's a fate entwined in that
What
as
you are not your
well.
thoughts.
You are not your thoughts, yeah. And I get that.
What are you then?
Exactly. That's what I don't get. What's you?
Everclogs.
I find it so complicated. I've read the 2 books on the subject and I still can't quite. That's maybe because,
Yeah.
yeah, it's very complicated.
Yeah. So he said, yeah. So stop making decisions based on personal preferences, and instead say yes to whatever life presented. I'd end up in a whole world of trouble if I said yes to
Well, that's the
everything.
thing.
His life took unexpected turns, leading to massive business success and deeper inner peace. But again, is that down to because there's that other thing that says and I don't know if this comes down to nihilism, that like if you did like law of attraction, right?
Yeah.
How many people practice it and don't get what they want compared to how many people practice it and do get what they want? Is it just a law of averages?
Or are they not practicing it right?
How do you control that as an expert? Oh, maybe we should do that as a research subject.
That would be good, wouldn't it? I try and remind people, not that I don't know that I'm very good at manifesting, to be honest. I think Matt's quite good at manifesting, but
And he's so laid back as well.
yeah, I think people make if manifestation, is that a word? Manifesting is a real thing. Let's say, oh
Excuse
bless
me,
you.
sorry.
Let's say it is for
That
a
must be a high
moment.
pollen count today. Go on.
Let's just talk. Some people would think we're very fanciful saying that the law of attraction is a real thing, but is that right? Is that a word? Fanciful.
It is now. Fanciful. You're so fanciful.
If it is a real thing, like a scientific fact, I think some people get it wrong because they just try and manifest money. So they might want, like, let's take it back to the friends with the ski holiday. They want a nice ski holiday. So in their heads, they just imagine having a bank account with like £10,000 in it so they could have a really luxury ski holiday.
Yeah.
In my opinion, that's the wrong way to do it. I think you've got to imagine yourself on the ski holiday. Then you don't worry about how you get there. So
And that is the part of the law, isn't it? Want the whatever it is, the experience, a thing, but not worry about how you get it,
yes,
how it comes to you.
exactly. Yeah.
And do you do that?
No, because do I do it? Probably yes, and probably no. I think I perhaps do, but possibly not intentionally. I think I've got too many limiting beliefs to do it intentionally, if that makes any kind of sense. Where did your mind go? What were you reading?
I was just thinking about whether it's unpredictable or predictable, really.
Okay. Elaborate.
Like, I don't know, like if my actions, like, so if I decided for the next week to lay on my sofa and watch a box set, say, and then instead of doing all of the lists and lists of work I want to do, and then decide, right, I'll do that next week. Does it matter?
Not if you believe in nihilism, it doesn't.
Yeah. Or am I wasting opportunities?
I think different people would believe different things. What would your
Mm.
future self think?
Oh God, I'd be terrified. I'd be like, get up! What are you doing? Yeah, no, I think that's a bad idea.
It's funny, isn't it? Because some people are really if that brings content, if that makes you feel content, and
I
you've
wouldn't
got
be able to relax.
no, I wouldn't either. But say you got to your deathbed and you look back and you think, oh, I had a really nice time spending my life on my sofa watching box sets. Like it was just relaxing and felt good.
But then I do the other day when Sean's here, I and she's like, "Oh, do you want to go out for a walk at lunchtime?" Saying I'm like, "Oh, I'm really busy," but I never say no to going if she wants to go for a walk at lunchtime. Like I probably shouldn't because
Mm.
I've got a ton of stuff to do, but I never say no to going out for like if she wants to do something because I'm like, oh, she's not going to be living with me forever, and I definitely that's an opportunity I should take
And
whether
it's
or not I'm
healthy.
busy.
It's good for you. Like there's loads of things
Yeah,
that are beneficial about that.
yeah,
I think
yeah,
that's a you're making a conscious decision. You actually probably should go for the walk if
yeah,
we're going to
yeah,
bring shoulds
yeah.
into this.
Ooh. Yeah, yeah, yeah. You're right. But I do sit there and think that sometimes I'm like, oh, but I've blocked out this, and then she's like, oh, do you want to go for a walk? And I'm like,
Mm,
yeah. I'll just stop that because I do think like, oh, whereas many years ago I'd probably be like, nope, I've got this work to do, and then we'll go out at whatever time. I can
yeah.
only go out at this time.
So you're finding a little balance in your life.
Mm, yeah, maybe. But I just think, like, that's something that I will say compromise on, but I wouldn't just sit there on the sofa for a week and watch a box set as much as my mind would be like, go on.
I bet you'd get really bored after a couple of days. I would.
Yeah, yeah. And not moving, you'd ache. I bet you'd ache
Do
from
you
not
look back
moving.
with regret thinking about this? Because I've never been a big like box set kind of person. But
Mm.
there was a period of my life before kids where I spent a lot of time, and actually even in the beginnings of kids, really, I spent time watching TV and I don't know, I didn't have. Well, I was older than you. How old were you when you had Sean?
23,
Yeah, so I was
22,
29,
23.
29, 28, nearly 29 when I had Ezra. That was a heap of time that I could have really, really achieved some stuff. And I didn't. I kind of dossed about, really. I mean, I
Yeah, but
wasn't
then
a.
is that not what you're supposed to be doing at that age instead
No,
of.
well, now I think, now sometimes when I see people like Stephen Bartlett, for example, who's what, like 30 and achieved this.
But what's he giving up in return? What are all these people that are like, your Chris Williamsons? That he's like, I don't know, 30s. That he's late 30s, doesn't have a wife, doesn't have any kids, but wants all of this. But he's given, and he talks about this in his podcast. Not being, he'd listen to this. Sorry, Chris, but like, and you're just like, I'm not saying you are, but he basically says that and I think he did a Q&A recently. So from one of these bro people that are big in their realm of people, has basically, talks a good game about people. You should get married, you should have kids, you should, but himself doesn't have a long-term relationship and openly admits because he chased after things back then. And then I listened to another very young guy who's probably not, I doubt he's even 30 yet, but I like his stuff. I listen to him. And he basically has just got engaged and, and Mr. Beast as well. Very, very successful youngster. And he basically is factoring in, I think he's just got engaged, but he's like literally, well, it's like a computer game for him, like where he fits in having children, and because he wants to be at home but he also wants to create businesses and he wants to,
Yeah,
and they're
but
missing out, I think.
I don't look back with regret because I just don't look back. I just kind of try to look forward. But if I did take a moment and look back, I think I'd be like, blimey, like I wish sometimes when I hear people talking, I'm like, oh, I wish that I'd been the me now then. Maybe I
Yeah,
needed to go.
yeah.
I needed to go through that journey. I needed to go through all of those steps to get to where I am now, and it just took a really long time. Maybe that's based on where you start, like
But
your
this is
experiences as a
another thing is
child.
like, yeah. And also, I think for me, I've never had the chance to relax. I've never had the safety to be in I've always been trying to either make ends meet or I've from when I was 17, I've never had the opportunity to be I suppose I've always been the one that's had to be the breadwinner as such. So therefore, do you get the chance to relax and really do the things that you perhaps want to do? If you were in a safer environment with parents that you could relax with, and you had that kind of environment,
Yeah.
do you see what I mean? Like your starting point was different,
Well,
so you could
yes.
relax in your 20s.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'm thinking more. I mean, I didn't not work. I worked, and I say I dossed about. It wasn't.
But were you working for the survival, or were you working because you wanted to? It's a different kind of.
Yeah, definitely. It felt like survival.
Well, yeah. So that's it.
It felt like survival, but only because based on my expectations of what I should have. It wasn't survival. Obviously, if I
So did
could
that
have.
change? Did that change then?
No, nothing changed. It's just that I worked for however many, like 5 years or whatever in corporates, and I mean, maybe I didn't. I did my hypnotherapy training while I was doing that, but I just think I've got such a structure now and work so hard. I mean, when I was in the corporates, I suppose perhaps I didn't get home till kind of 7:30 in the evening at earliest, and I was leaving at kind of 6:30. Maybe I'm being harsh on myself, but I just think that there was periods of time where I had a lot more time. I must have had a lot more time than I have now because I didn't have kids at home. And I feel like I'm achieving much more now than I've ever
Mm,
achieved. So if I put in the effort back then to life that I'm putting
yeah.
in now
But
with
you didn't
no
know, and you didn't have the
kids,
knowledge, did you?
I didn't have the knowledge. And so where I say the starting point, I think some people are brought up with such a kind of wide view of the world. Like I met some girls a couple of years ago that were very early 20s, like 23 years old. I think of Sian. I mean, Sian, I feel like is a little bit more like this, but they'd been to that place in Costa Rica that my friend
Mm.
goes. I don't know what you'd call it, like a retreat kind of center where it's all about doing workshops and
Wellness.
self-development. Yeah, but it's not like yoga and
Yeah.
healthy eating. It is that, but it's also kind of all day workshops on self-development and stuff. So
Mm.
they're really developing themselves and growing and learning that kind of stuff from such an early age, whereas I didn't fall into any of that until late 20s. And I wonder what set them on that path in the first place. They must have had an awareness of that. I didn't have an
Yeah.
awareness of that at that age. And so if you start life, I think Sian does because of you, and I think Ezra and Shiloh do because of some of the environments that they're put into. Like Joe, my friend Joe, who does his gongs, he attends a lot of ceremonies, like sweat lodge type events, kind of Native
Mm.
American traditional indigenous ceremony type things. And he's taken his son with him since he was forever. Um, and so his son, even though he might reject it, he will start from a place of having an awareness, just a more, what would you call it, like a broader, wider awareness of what
Mm.
experiences there are in the world. And then if you've got all of that from a young age, when you hit 20, you don't have to start there.
Yeah. Yeah. You've learnt all of that. God, I don't think I was even, yeah, probably in my 30s when I started looking at anything deeper than that. Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's a problem with school, isn't it? Just going to normal mainstream school. So much of the focus is on um, just the academics and
Killing,
those.
killing children's
Oh,
um, brains.
Yeah, but there's no time
I
for
don't. I
anything
just.
else. There's no time for any other exploration. But I suppose if your parents are doing it, then you see it.
Yeah. So.
But if fate's
And
a
then
thing,
would
then it
that
doesn't
mean? Yeah,
matter
but I
anyway.
was going to say, but then yeah. Is that the fate that your children are then learning all of this now, or was that meant to be? Is that how we're evolving as modern humans? Is that our evolution, that our children are more spiritual than we were?
No, I don't think so. I think that's just us.
Well,
I know people who's really not like that. But maybe
what do you mean?
they just don't have their children won't have that knowledge. They bring their children have. I can see them kind of similar to what I was like when I was younger.
Mm.
But then my parents might dispute this. They might say we showed it all to you and you weren't interested.
Yeah, I definitely did not. I can wholeheartedly, with my whole life, betted on it. Betted,
All the
only I
money in
suppose.
the world.
Yeah. Yeah.
So shall we conclude this with a
Yeah.
do you have any strong belief either way?
I think you can make your own. I think you can conjure your own future or your own life. Curate. But how and what means you do it are, I think, interchangeable. Like there can be aspects of fate, and then perhaps the universe.
So it's
So
not
it is.
all or
'Tis
nothing.
written. Yeah.
It's quite nice to have
And
a
what about
little
you?
openness. Yeah,
Mm. Final thoughts?
I would love to believe in both. I'd love to believe in fate and the excitement of what's next in store for me. On the flip side, I'd love to believe in being able to determine my own future, because it means if I work hard and
Yeah.
take myself in a certain direction, then I might be able to make it happen. I think it's just nice to be open
Yeah.
and work
Bring to me
like,
what you will. Bring to me what
yeah.
you will.
But I don't think we should just sit on our sofas and do nothing.
Oh, that's my day ruined.
Yeah. And even nihilism, I think, has got its benefits, because it
Yeah.
can stop you getting too depressed in certain situations. Like, well, we do all end up in the same place, or do we? But we do.
Ah,
we
that's one for another day, isn't it?
we all die, and we can't take our money
The
with us,
afterlife.
and we all,
Yeah.
you know,
There's no rich people at the ceremony. At the cemetery.
exactly.
All right,
So,
we'll end it there.
bye.
Bye.
Grow together, we'll grow.